We are recording. Patrick, welcome. Thank you for coming tonight so that you can uh, preach the gospel that is SharePoint Premium. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, who you're with, and about SharePoint Premium and how it can help us.
Okay, cool. All right, and I have like a brief slide deck here. I'll try the present in the Teams option to get that going on screen. And then I'll jump into a demo. So let me see if this works. Present. Okay. All right, can you all see my slide deck? Okay, got a thumbs up.
I can see it. Yep.
Okay, all right. Michelle, you have your hand up. Do you have a question?
No, I was trying to give you thumbs up.
Cool.
I can see it. Yeah.
All right, awesome.
Yeah,
all right, we'll go ahead and get going. Cool. Scott, thanks for having me this evening. And everyone else, thank you for joining. So, as some of you heard, prior to kicking this thing off, we are talking about SharePoint Premium today, specifically content assembly. And we'll kind of dive into both SharePoint Premium as a whole and content assembly specifically as we go on. So before we get started, a bit about me. I'm Pat McGowan, CEO of Cloudwell. I've been in the Microsoft space, primarily in the DC metro area for about 22 years. My focus has been primarily in the SharePoint space and Microsoft 365. Prior to founding Cloudwell in 2012, I was a contractor for the DoD, Treasury, HHS, various nonprofits and commercial businesses globally. So kind of a big, bit of a breadth of in depth of different industries and spaces that I've worked in around that SharePoint space. Today, my focus is really around helping organizations understand and adopt these next generation features available within SharePoint Online and Microsoft 365, thanks to the advancements of Gen AI, et cetera. Feel free to scan the QR code. My contact information is in there as well. And with that, we'll get started. So again, before we dive into content assembly, I wanted to take a step back and talk a little bit about SharePoint Premium, right? So what exactly is SharePoint Premium, formerly known as Syntex? So it was kind of pushed aside due to all the buzz around Copilot. It was a bit of a joint announcement back in November 2023. And SharePoint Premium kind of fell back under the all the excitement that was there on Copilot, right? Rightfully so. So SharePoint Premium is an advanced content management and experiences platform. What does that mean, right? So breaking that down, it's really a collection of features in the following categories. So you have content processing, and this is what Microsoft calls pay-as-you-go. So for each of these features within content processing, there's a per use fee, right? And that's all documented on the Microsoft site. I've got some resources I'll share at the end of this presentation that will help you kind of best understand what the pricing is associated to the service or feature. But so pay as you go. So you've got things like content assembly, document translation, document processing, and this one's really expanded into like pre-built document processing, unstructured document processing, structured and free form. There's some really cool features in there. I mean, you could do multiple sessions on that one in and of itself. E-signature, which is Microsoft's kind of premium feature that is not only competing with, but integrating with other e-signature solutions out there like DocuSign and Adobe signed. The OCR capabilities, so basically extraction through OCR, into metadata, and a ton more. There are a lot more from a content processing perspective. Then you have your content experiences. So what I would say a content experience is, and if we look at this kind of short list here, content query, this is really advanced metadata search. So when you're using the search in SharePoint Online, you're able to select specific metadata, and based off of the column type for the metadata, you can do things like date range searches or other field type specific searches. Rules are like a scaled back Power Automate. So when you've got your SharePoint Premium experience enabled and you've got the content experiences enabled, you can quickly create rules based on basically simple flows based on rules you define. So like when a document is created, if a metadata value equals this or column value equals this, do that, right? So simple, quick flows that you can create. You've got site templates, so things like the accounts payable, contracts, content center. These are different advanced site templates that become available to you under those content experiences. And again, a lot more under the content experiences. Then you've got content governance. So things like the ability to auto apply labels to secure your content. This one's very, very powerful. Again, you could do a whole separate section on that one alone. And then Microsoft 365 and archive, backup and archive, right? So two separate features. Again, those features are, very entry level. I think as Scott had mentioned, at the onset, kind of right now sits within the same tenant. So if you're looking for like a colo, or dispersed, right, sort of solution, you might look at some of the other options that are out there. But some great options if you are, running out of space, you're getting pinged for like, hey, I need to buy more SharePoint storage. Maybe you don't. Maybe you need to back up, into relatively cheap storage. You don't necessarily need the dispersed solutions. For backup or archival purposes, this might be a good entry-level backup and archive solution for you under that SharePoint premium umbrella. And nice thing being those are within the same platform. So that aside, today we're here to talk about content assembly, right? So what is content assembly? So from any document library in SharePoint, you can quickly generate standard repetitive business documents. So things like NDAs, SOWs, status reports, and more. When you think about it, what are documents that you are, repeatedly or regularly creating or generating? This allows you to create a modern template for that. You can associate fields when creating a modern template within. You can associate fields within the template. So. And I will show, in the demonstration, I'll kind of guide through how you do the field association, how you do lookups, etc. But it's very powerful in that, when you're creating a modern template within a SharePoint site, you can do field association. So like say, for example, you've got a customer name 10 times throughout a document. You highlight it once, it's going to highlight it 9 other times. You'll do the field association. And then when you're using that modern template, it will fill those fields in for you. So you're not having to go through and fill in a content control or do anything like that manually. Very simple form to get that content within its space. You also have the ability to render sections conditionally, which is really powerful. So say you have a contract, and given the type of services within your contract, you may want to conditionally show a section or show multiple sections or not show sections. So you can set those conditions within your template based on values of fields. And then when your document is generated, it will or won't show that based off of the values. Very, very cool feature. When you publish your modern template, the fields that you create and apply then become metadata fields available to you within the library. So what's really cool about that is you can do things like apply list view formatting to add instant meaning to the data within your documents. Really cool. If any of you have seen like some of the examples of what some folks out in the PMP community do for like list view formatting, column formatting, you can do some really cool stuff. So recommend checking that out if you haven't seen that before. And then finally, you can use Power Automate to automate the generation of documents, right? So, say I've heard different scenarios, like call it a mail merge, right? So you need to send off 10,000 documents, all the same content, just different contact information, et cetera. Well, this makes that really simple in the context of SharePoint. From a pricing perspective, content assembly is defined as, again, pay as you go, and it's at 15 cents a document. So, really, whether you're creating documents at bulk scale or one-off, you can pretty quickly realize your ROI from a doc gen perspective. In addition to, what I really like about it is, you don't have to worry about your templates getting kind of mixed up in the mix of a workflow of manually working on documents, right? Formatting, fields getting moved around, etc. So it's really easy to control and be consistent and secure with your templates, so you don't have to worry about that. Pretty nice. So that's content assembly, at a high level. Before we jump into the demo, are there any questions in particular on these items that I've talked about here? No, going once, going twice. Okay. Okay, cool. So for today's demo, I'll start by showing what creating a document from a template looks like, and then we'll kind of peel back the layers and we'll step through how we actually got there, and then we can discuss really how you automate the document generation process with Power Automate, and then how you can really extend it from there, right? So doing other things potentially with Power Automate to bring in external data sources into your data, and then you can really start to understand the power or the potential behind what content assembly gives you. So let me go ahead and switch this over to my share my screen, and please let me know when you all can see this. Good. Okay. Thanks, Michelle. Okay. So what I'm showing on screen here is, again, just a SharePoint document library. I'm down in the status reports folder of this document library, and I have a modern template using content assembly created on this library. So I've got some list view formatting, as I mentioned, right? So, based on the project status, we're visually displaying a color, some nice rounded button around that. We're showing, who the project manager is as defined within the document, when it was modified, who it was modified by. So, your standard, column metadata, within SharePoint, right? So these are previous status reports grouped by client, grouped by project name, and we want to create this week's status report. So within this folder in this document library, as I mentioned, I've got my modern template. I'll go ahead and hit the new option here, and you'll notice I've got a project status report template right within the new item button. We'll select that, and this is going to load up the content assembly dialog with my template. So you can see here, we've got a couple of different things that I'd like to point out. So standardized template on the left, we've got a placeholder for a client logo. We've got our template contents here, our logo, title of the report. Then we've got our field placeholders that we've configured. So you can see overall status is a placeholder, or a field. Client name is a field, project name field, report date field. Then we have a table here. This is really, really cool, and I love this, and I'll dive a little bit deeper into this, if you'd like. But basically, this table, it's purely a table in Excel, or a table in Microsoft Word, and with its header and then an empty first row. And so what you can do within content assembly, and I'll show this when we go through and actually create a new template or define a new template, you can select your entire table and map that to data coming out of SharePoint. So for this example, we're creating this project status report, and I have a work item tracker, a work progress tracker, using Microsoft Lists, that the project work items are tracked in, their progress, priority, start date, due date assigned to are all tracked within that, and we can pull that data dynamically real time into this document to build my status report. So super cool. I'll show you when we actually do that. Some other things I really like about that. Below that, we've got contact information, right? So who's the project manager, their email, and then project champion and email. So a very basic, simple status report, but I really wanted to use this as an example of the different types of fields you can configure, and then the flexibility, how relational columns work, and so forth. So on the right-hand side, so we see our template kind of preview on the left. On the right, is our form that allows us to select the data to build those fields, the data for the fields within our template. So we've got our client logo, like I mentioned at the top here. We've got project status, client name, project name, report date, work items, project manager, email, project champion, champion email. So one thing I really love about Content Assembly is it tries to really simplify the process of filling these fields out by understanding the relationships between the data sources you've configured. So what I mean by that is I've got a client logo and a client name. Now, I want to first pick my client name to start building this status report out. So I can click into this field. Again, this is really just like your standard SharePoint experience where you're getting, type ahead selection options, or you can actually select from the full list. And so what this is going to do, I have this field configured to a clients list within my SharePoint site. And so I can see all of my clients, and if the clients have a logo, we'll go with Dunder Mifflin for this one, big Office fan. And this is who we're creating this is the client we're creating this project status report for. So by nature of selecting Dunder Mifflin, it's smart enough to know, all right, client logo was configured from that same list. Let's fill in their client logo as well, right? So now we've got client name, client logo, and we're going to continue to fill out the rest of these values. So we've got our project name. This is within a project list. For today, we'll go ahead and go with Michael Scott's Project Nexus. We can see in this view, it's in progress. We can see that I'm the project manager. We'll go ahead and select that. And again, because of those relational fields and how smart Content Assembly is, it's able to fill in those additional fields. So we've now got the Dunder Mifflin Project Nexus status report. It's in progress. Project manager is myself. Project champion is Michael Scott. So now we need to give it a report date. This is nice. This is just a date field type, right? Fill in. So I can say, okay, we're actually doing this. Our status reports are given on Fridays. So I'll pick tomorrow on my report date. And then we want to fill in our work items and give it the status report. So this I love. Again, we're going to select from a list. This is configured against the work progress tracker list in the template configuration on the back end. And so we can see all of our items in the work progress tracker, or, hey, I know I have a view configured that shows me all in progress items. And those are the ones I really only care about in this report. So we're going to go to that view and we're going to just select all of those items, hit OK. And our table and status report with current statuses is now filled in dynamically. So really, really love that. If you think about some of the other templates that are available to you, or what you can do with SharePoint lists, and how you can, build out your list columns, pretty powerful as you can directly pull that information real time into your template, your Word document that you're creating. Finally, we've got project manager emails here. I wanted to demonstrate these as just different field types, so I didn't dynamically pull them in. You could, of course, but I'll go ahead and just put my email address in. If you got a Cloudwell, it's not autofill that one. Let's do scott@m.com, and you'll notice these are actually hyperlinked fields in here as well. It's because this field type is actually an email field type, so super cool. It's not just free text, it's automatically, applying the mail to link on it. So, and that's it. So I go ahead and hit create document. I can give the document a name, project status report. Let's just go ahead and say 4/12/2024. There's our project status report, and you can also generate your document in either a Word document file type or PDF. So up to you in terms of the file type you'd like to create. So I'll go ahead and hit the create option, and it's going to apply those field values, generate my document that quickly, and it's done. So we now see our new document in place. So we'll go ahead and select that, and we'll actually see, it's got all the information that we just filled in. Status report's good to go and ready to send off. So I will pause there as I've kind of demonstrated through the kind of the usage of the template that's been created, and see if there are any questions.
Go ahead, Costin.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was a great demo. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thank you. So I just want to confirm, it looked like when you chose what you call work items, or I might call task items, those were only task or items related to Project Nexus, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Right.
So going backward, when you selected the company name Dunder Mifflin and then went to get your project name, only those projects associated with Dunder Mifflin were listed. Is that right?
So you could absolutely do that. Again, this is a demo environment, so I haven't really taken it to the degree of creating all of those relational field values, but you can absolutely do that. One thing I didn't demonstrate for those field types is you can not only, and I'll show this when we go through creating a template, you can look at your term store as well. And so you can look at your enterprise taxonomy, and that actually gives you the ability to do like a multi-select, which you don't get from a SharePoint list connection. So that's very cool from a really from a template perspective capability. So it's definitely expanded to that. Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I got a quick one for you, Pat. I noticed it took a second for the logos to pop up. Is it pulling a fresh version of the graphics every time you open this? Like, say you change your logo and you open up a document that you had started from before you had changed the logo. Is it going to update the logo? I'm just the pros and cons here. Like, for data integrity, I don't want certain changes to be made. Then again, maybe I'm making this change to go correct a whole bunch of shit that we've already done, and I wasn't using the right logo to begin with.
Right.
So, like, do you get a choice in that?
So that's a very good question. I believe it gets embedded when the document gets generated. So if you're changing the logo after the fact, it's not going to change the logo here after the fact. We could obviously confirm that, like if we pulled this in and tried to look at what the actual, so I think like it loaded right away. It didn't try to like load it from a dynamic source. So I believe it's getting embedded at their docgen creation time, not pulling dynamically. Mm-hmm. And to your point, exactly right. That would be a big issue from a data integrity perspective. So I think this is just the experience of it being in the Word in the web as opposed to.
I was just wondering if maybe that was like the difference between doing it as a PDF and a Word document. That PDF, you're kind of stuck with whatever you got from it.
Right.
The Word document, you're still able to, like, just like if you export a list to Excel, you have the ability to go click that, requery
keep the connection
in order, to update your data. I didn't know if like there's just a button to refresh.
Yep. Yeah, no live connections in there that I'm aware of. Any other questions?
No. Not yet.
Okay. So I guess before I actually jump into the template creation, one other scenario I want to share is the automation component, right? Power Automate, and how this works. So think about, you know, a scenario that's common for us, right, is the generation of a mutual non-disclosure agreement. You know, if we're partnering up with another organization, potentially working with a new consultant, like step one before we start sharing too much information is get an MNDA in place, right? Pretty standard for most. So, you know, obviously you may have consultant data or information elsewhere. You might have like a master consultant list, and that's where you could use Power Automate to kind of sync in data if need be, or like Dataverse or something like that. But again, to keep it simple from a demo perspective, I'm going to go ahead and just say we've got a consultants list in our SharePoint site here. It's just a list. It takes in some very simple information, you know, title or name, address, you know, the status if they're active or not. Again, you could build off of this, you know, of those columns as much as you'd like. But what I love about this is, so the scenario here is we need to generate a new consulting agreement. So we're working with a new consultant. You know, Scott said some really great stuff today, so we wanna talk to him about some other stuff. So picking on you, Scott. Sorry, hope that's all right. You live in somewhere Maryland, if I'm correct, and you are pending status. So that's it. Again, you could build off of these columns and take as much data in from this perspective and auto-gen your document, but I'll go ahead and click save. And so what's going to happen now is we have a Power Automate flow with a document generation step in it that's going to get triggered, create my document, it'll fire off an email. And if I show you what this looks like, if we jump into Power Automate, I'm sorry if this is too technical for some, but this is Power Automate. The trigger is when an item is created on that consultants list. We're going to use the generate document using Microsoft Syntax action. And then we're just going to send an email off to me to let me know that the consulting agreement was created. So that takes, I think this can potentially take up to 5 minutes, given the flow settings I have. So it'll trigger off. So while we're waiting, let's jump over into the document library. This is the root of my document library. I've got a couple of different folders within here. I think we're creating a consulting agreement, right? So we'll notice, and yeah, it should take just another minute or so. That flow is going to run. Oh, I just heard the email chime go off in the background. So 6 seconds ago. So what happened is the doc got created. It sent me an email. We can see Scott Brewster consulting agreement right here with today's date, right? So what we've done within the Power Automate flow is we've had the ability to dynamically set certain field values, pull in information from the list trigger, build the consulting agreement. And so if we actually look at that, we'll notice within our document here that this is by and between Scott Brewster, located at somewhere Maryland, right? And so basically, you know, we could do things like effective date, like you could have all those field values within your SharePoint list to build this thing out, all the way down to, you know, the signature line. So really cool. I mentioned like conditional field values. This again is where you could say he is of type X consultant, and given the value of X consultant, we're going to conditionally show these sections within the document. That's the power of the conditional fields. This is the power of the automation of generating a document. So you don't have to manually hit the new button to do it. You can do it automatically based off of list data. So any questions on that scenario before we dive into the actual details? Yep, Costin, go ahead. You are on mute.
You might be thankful for that. No, seriously. The name of this document starts with 2024-04-11 Scott Brewster. Now, unless I missed it, you didn't physically name that. That was automatically pulled from the data in the list or a setting you have here in the extensions.
So that was
Power
done in the
Automate.
flow. Yep, that was all done in the flow.
Okay.
So again,
Yeah.
I for sake of demonstration, I did hard code some stuff in the flow itself, right?
Okay.
But that being said, like things like file name is just using a formula, right? In Power Automate, that's doing a few different things. It's concatenating some of the values, like Scott, like the consultant name, today's date, and that's how it's building that out.
Thank you.
So, yep. Okay. Any other questions? Good. Okay, cool. So now I'll demonstrate what it actually takes to create a modern template to use content assembly. So again, this is very straightforward. Once content assembly is enabled at the Microsoft 365 admin center level, right? Step one, you have to create your Azure subscription. Step two, enable specific services you want to enable. You then get the create modern template option available to you. So I also mentioned other things like rules, etc. By nature of having that Azure subscription, you get the rules option here. So like some other hidden content query, this is content query as well. So you get some other like great features just by enabling your Azure subscription currently. A quick tip I didn't know until I started seeing certain icons that I hadn't seen before. And then I come to find out that's all SharePoint Premium. Those are the content experiences. But again, going back here, create modern template. It's as simple as picking the document that the template that I have as the starting point, and then building that modern template from it. So I have, I believe in this templates folder, my project status report template, right? So this is like the bare bones template before I applied all of those content assembly fields. So we'll select it, and you can pick it from your OneDrive, you can pick it from your desktop. It can be anywhere you're currently, right? And so, what it is, again, it's just an image placeholder. It's got company logo, it's got, the title of the document. And then as I was building my template out, I kind of just put brackets around everything I knew. As I was building this in Word on the desktop, I put brackets around all of the fields I knew I wanted to create as fields in content assembly. So it was easy for me to jump in here and say, okay, so I know I want this to be this, I want that to be that, right? So start with the image. So we select the image in the template, hit the field button, and we're going to call this client logo. This is going to be a content field. So you can do things like content fields or form fields. So content selections get replaced, or a form field where no actual content gets replaced. It's just metadata available in the library once you publish the template, but it doesn't actually change anything within the document itself. So we're doing client logo, and our image selection one is the content to be replaced. We'll hit next, and then we get to say, how will authors fill this field in? Are they going to pick any image? So can they upload something from their desktop or another source? Or do we want to limit it to pick from a list of specific images? So I'll say select, and I have my clients list. My clients list is the one where I had Dunder Mifflin with the client name and the logo. Again, very simple client list. And logo were the only fields there. So we'll select that, hit next. Then it looks at that list, and it looks at all of the columns within it. It finds that there's an image column called client logo. So we'll select that and save. Our final option on the image field type is if we want to resize it. So if we want to actually keep it a consistent size, or if we just want it to be whatever size the incoming image is, right? So you can kind of put some constraints when using images, which is nice. We'll let it select an image. We'll let it come in as it is instead of resizing it. So we'll save that, and then let's talk here the client name, just to show you how to map up a field coming from a list that's not an image. So I'll select client name plus field. We'll call it client name. And it's got our selection in here, hit next. And then this is coming from a column of a list or a library. Again, you could do manual entry, so you could do single line, multi-line, etc. So, you know, you can do like user entry, multi-line of text if you wanted to create a narrative section within a statement of work, or, you know, an agreement, right? So that's where you would use some of those sort of fill-ins potentially. But again, we'll go here. I also mentioned you could do select or manage metadata term set, which, you know, you could go to the degree of going out to your term store, looking in, and, you know, that's very useful as well if you're using your term store. But again, we'll go here. This is client name. Right, so this is in the clients list as well, and this is the title column of that clients list. So that's how we mapped up the selecting the client name to fill in client name, client logo. Table. So this one, again, really cool. So if I select, you know, when I'm hovering here, you know, if you're, you know, used to working within Microsoft Word, if you're hovering a table, you get that kind of table resize selection option. Click on that, hit the plus field. It will recognize you've selected your table. I'll call this work items. And then we're going to use it as a content field, hit next. And because it's a table, it knows, hey, you can map this to a list. So we'll hit select list option, and then we pick our work progress tracker and hit save. And then what I also like about this furthermore is you can map it to any one of your views by default. So the previous one I had it mapped to all items view, and then I had flipped it over into the in progress items. But you could simplify that even more by just mapping it right to your in progress items, right? So then they're just there, you select them, go, as opposed to changing your views and then selecting them and hitting go. So, and then you just map up your other fields, right? Again, so it tries to be smart in terms of field names, but work item would be title. Everything else it knows, because our column names in the table are the same as our column names in our work progress tracker. So super cool. And then you just hit save on that. And again, we could be done at this point, really. I know I didn't map the rest of these fields, but I'd like to show you the published experience here. So a few more things. So your template name, you know, this is where you could give it the template name. So when someone hits that new button, you know, new what, right? So for this scenario, we'd probably want to just call it project status report, right? So we create a new project status report, and then you can pick the fields you want to publish out to your library when the document gets created. So in this case, we had a single line of text column, an image column or an image field, and a work items field, which was a table. Right now, there's limitations on the field types. So, you know, you're not gonna be able to pull in the image column into the metadata, and you're not gonna be able to pull in a table into a column maybe down the road, but those are your limitations for now. But that's really it. That is the extent of creating these templates and then using them like I demonstrated earlier. Daniel, I see you have your hand up. Do you have a question?
Yes, when you were choosing from the list, do you know, can you choose, will you be able to view lists from other sites or even other collections, or are you limited to just whatever's on the site?
So let's go ahead and like pick project name here, right? And let's step through that scenario. So project name is going to be our field selection project name. And so in terms of your selections, you have the ability to pick from any SharePoint site that you have access to within your tenant. So this user has limited access within the tenant, so it's only seeing 3 different sites here, but you absolutely could jump out to a completely separate site collection to pull that data into. Any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay.
Not me, not yet.
Okay, cool. So a few caveats I'll kind of share, if you go down and experience, kind of start to toy around with this functionality in your own environments, I will say getting the formatting in a way for certain things. Again, this is a very simple, this project status report, there's not much to it, right? So I didn't really experience much in the way of challenges, but I definitely found some when it came down to specific formatting. So you really want to format your document in Word, your template in Word on the desktop, and get it into a spot where when you view it in Word online, right? If you were to upload that document to your OneDrive and you viewed it in the Word in the browser, that it still looks pretty good. Sometimes fields can shift in Word on the web, etc. So there's a little bit of tweaking from that perspective. One thing I noticed is I was in a kind of a little bit of a, I don't know, tip here maybe, is as I was working on this, and again, you can work with the template in here too, right? If you wanted to space things out or do some other things. But what you don't get is you don't get your command bars or your ribbons, right? So you can't like do additional formatting. You can just type text in here and tab things around, space things around. One thing I noticed though is if I were to at this point in time hit Control P, what it actually does is it's going to kind of generate the PDF of what this might look like when it gets generated. So this tells me, all right, yeah, that to me, that's what I want it to look like at the end of the day. So it was kind of call it a document generation print preview tip right there. Something to try when you're going through and creating your templates. Let's see. Again, this is going to expand. Microsoft is expanding the template creation experience into Word on the desktop. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I think, from a formatting perspective and just the process of doing that as a whole, much like you interact in the side pane, like with Copilot within any of the Office applications, you'll be able to, have this sort of experience in that side pane on the desktop, and it's really going to streamline creation of templates from there. So I know that is a welcomed feature that should be coming hopefully in the near future. Okay, yeah, any other questions before I jump back to the presentation? You just have some resources I'd like to share and then any final Q&A. But yeah, anything before I jump out of the demo?
No, sir.
Nope. Okay, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and present this in Teams again. Is that just like to resume, please? Yep. Okay. Want to see my slide deck again?
Yes.
Wonderful. So some resources that I'd like to share in the QR code, if you scan that, it'll take you to a link with these resources and some others. But a few things I wanted to call out. I have a corresponding blog post I wrote up, about this scenario. I dive deeper into some of the other nuances as well that I experienced really in the initial creation process, et cetera, that I detail out in there. Then I've got just an overview of content assembly link from the Microsoft Learn documentation. This really does a great job of detailing out, how to get started, how to really step through what I just demonstrated today. They talk about other limitations, et cetera. But it's really good, clean and clear documentation that will help you get started with content assembly if you'd like to. Next, I have a link to the presentation that Microsoft gave back in November of last year, introducing SharePoint Premium. It details out a lot of the different experiences, the content experiences, the content processing. So it's kind of a deep dive into what SharePoint Premium really is. Feel free to give that one a read when you have a chance. And then something that I really love sharing with everyone is this promotional offer that Microsoft is giving everyone around SharePoint Premium. So if you're not aware, January through June of this year, Microsoft is giving you basically free credits to try all of these different SharePoint Premium services. So, if you want to try and kick around Content Assembly, you can, basically enable your Azure subscription, set a $0 budget on it so you don't actually pay anything, but you're able to utilize the credits for this promotional offer, and you can do so. You can get started with e-signature, you can get started with the auto tagging. There's a lot of really cool features that you can get to experience without actually having to pay anything, just by taking advantage of that promotional offer. So I would definitely say check that out and give it a try, if you have some time.
Oh, good. Because I was wondering, did it cost you about $1 to run this demo for us tonight?
It did not cost me a dime. Which, that I love. And again, and that's why I'd say, make sure you set a budget. If you do go down that road, set a budget on your Azure subscription, right? Like, I think I actually set mine to $5. I'm willing to pay Microsoft $5 for the experience they're giving me to try all this stuff out. But again, at 15 cents, and I think, let's just see here, the promo offer on Content Assembly, 50 documents per month, right? So you could theoretically generate April, May, June, 150 documents. Now if you're using the Power Automate action, yeah, you could get to that pretty quickly. But if you're kind of just trying it out, you're going to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, because that was making me worry. Like, what if some knucklehead made a bad loop?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, and exactly, that's why I say set that budget on your Azure subscription. Then doesn't matter. It's budget set, can't exceed it. And there are more controls and transparency, visibility into the charges for all of that stuff that Microsoft is working on. So, it'll be much easier for, because these premium features are really tailored towards business users. Like, I love them from a technical user perspective, but they really make sense from a business user perspective, from a usage standpoint, right? Like, you could see marketing departments want this, partner channel departments wanting this, legal departments wanting this. But those users today have to go into Azure to look at the usage, and you really have to go deep into the subscription to even find it. But that's changing. Yes, the link to this promotion, if you scan the QR code, here, I'll share it in chat as well. But if you scan that QR code, it'll take you to a resources link on my blog that has all of these resources listed and then some. So, yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So, I guess at this point that is the demo. So again, thank you all for your time. If anybody has any other final questions, feel free to speak loud or raise your hand. Otherwise, and I hope you found this useful. My contact information is throughout the presentation. Scott will be posting this video at some point in the near future. But again, thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate this, because I actually have a business case where I was going to try to do the whole list to document to, with Power Automate and all that. I think that because of the promotion, I might try to get this knocked out real quick on doing new contracts for new clients.
Yep.
I think that might be a fun little time.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, that's what I love about it. It's the ease of, again, you're going to spend the time on the front end, right? In Microsoft Word on the desktop, getting your template in a spot where it's ready to just click and drag your fields and apply those field settings, right? Like, that's it.
Yeah. Looks really cool. Promising.
Taking mail merge to a whole new level, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Modern mail merge.
Skipping 30 years and going straight into.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Appreciate it. I'm gonna stop the recording. And then if anyone else wants to ask another question,